Hey, vinyl community. So today seems to be catch-up day for me. I'm trying to jump on a bunch of contests that I have been negligent in participating in over the past couple of weeks. But very excited about this one because it is one of my favorite people in the vinyl community. Talking about Robert's on my turntable. Robert, such a great guy. My friend to the north. The probably most chill vinyl community member, and I mean that in a very complimentary way. You're just sitting there basically every video having coffee with Robert as he goes through his amazing collection. Robert did a series of videos recently where he showed his collection in alphabetical order, and I made sure I caught every episode. Love seeing all the cool music, and a lot of it I wasn't even aware of. Some of those bands, some of the artists I'd never heard of, so it was definitely an education for me. But Robert is such a laid-back guy. You feel like you instantly form a bond with him watching his videos. But I'm so happy that he is having a 700 subs contest. Congratulations, Robert, on reaching 700. That is definitely an impressive milestone. So Robert's contest is he wants us to show 5 albums that were influential for us when we were teenagers. So I'm very happy to jump into this contest. I could have picked easily 30 albums, but just kind of randomly chose from some of the ones that I remember most fondly growing up as a teenager. Most of them are going to be on cassette because that was the format that I was collecting music on back in the day. But I do have one album to show. So I'm going to start off showing this album because I think it's the earliest, one of the earliest anyway. I became a teenager in 1983. And the big album that came out, now mind you, all of my friends, everybody at school were listening to Def Leppard, they were listening to AC/DC, they were listening to Iron Maiden, they were listening to Judas Priest, listening to a lot of heavy music. And so in contrast, because I was very much like, I'm my own man. You know, I like to be independent. I like to think that, I'm choosing music outside of the mainstream. I'm choosing music that my friends are not choosing. That makes me extra cool. You know, I felt like I was an individual, like I was kind of a rebel. I wasn't going to be following the stream that all my other friends were choosing. And so the music that I was listening to back as a 13-year-old in 1983, a bit of outside the box choice here, but I'm going with Men at Work, Cargo. I was huge into Men at Work. I had a Men at Work button, like one of those little tiny buttons, but more than that, I had a Men at Work Velcro wallet. I got it, there was like some fundraising thing. It was like selling candy bars or some kind of school fundraiser back in the day, and depending on what you sold, there were different thresholds of different tiers of prizes that you could get. And I had my eye on that Velcro Men at Work wallet. And believe you me, I felt like I was such a badass when I would whip that baby out. I'd be standing there in the cafeteria in the lunch line with my chocolate milk, and I'd whip that wallet out. I mean, it was louder than that, but like, love that sound. I can still even picture right now, like, oh, that will be 45 cents for my chocolate milk. And like everybody in the cafeteria instantly, like their ears would perk up because the sound was so loud. Everybody's head would swivel over to me, and I'd have my Men at Work Velcro wallet there, like, oh yeah, how you like me now? And I was like so badass with my Men at Work Velcro wallet. Like 45 cents up here, 50 cents. Little tip for you. Go to my chocolate milk, sit down. Everybody's like, oh, come sit at my table. You're a Men at Work fan? Wow, come sit over here. And I'd be like, oh, who do I sit with? All these pretty girls and all these cool kids wanting me to, making room for me at their table, wanting me to sit because they knew I was a badass Men at Work fan. I knew what was cool. You can have your Iron Maiden, you can have your Def Leppard, you can have your Judas Priest, you can have all your cool, heavy rock band, Ozzy Osbourne, and your stuff like that. No, thank you. I will be listening to my Cargo album. And what I didn't, I guess, appreciate at the time was just how deep some of these tracks were. Like a song like Overkill, which was the first single, I think, off the album, you'd listen to that and you'd think like, oh yeah, that's got a great melody, got a great chorus. Colin Hay is totally nailing the vocal on it. But then you're not realizing it's a song about mental illness, which, woo, a little too heavy for me at the time. So I just thought it was kind of a cool little pop song. But no, it's actually very deep. Also, speaking of mental illness, you've got kind of the split personality disorder represented on Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive. Another great, that's a lead-off track off this album. It's a Mistake, a little slice of reggae. The Police were doing reggae, but you know who else was doing reggae and doing it very convincingly? Men at Work. And you also had this badass cover right here, looking at this, which I think the artist who did this, maybe he drew from Mad Magazine, I don't know, but I just remember staring at this, wanted to get a t-shirt with this on it so bad. It was so cool. I think that on MTV or one of the channels, they had a Men at Work concert. But this was Men at Work's second album. They would only have one album after this. But I have such fond memories of this. Blue for You. Beatles has a song called For You, Blue. This is called Blue for You. Same three words as the Beatles song. Doesn't sound anything at all like that George Harrison track, but I still thought it was cool. Like, wow, is that an homage to Let It Be or George Harrison, or what's going on here? No Sign of Yesterday is just such a tear-jerking ballad. So emotional, very cool. Settle Down, My Boy. Kind of like they had Johnny B. Good off their debut album. Settle Down, My Boy. Is a little bit about, a man imparting wisdom to a younger man, which I thought is very poignant. But yeah, a solid album. Just very cool. Love the artwork on here. Love the tracks. And Men at Work, holy cow. Okay, I've eaten up about 12 minutes already of this video on freaking Men at Work. But the next band that I got into, this album was very influential, and have no idea how somebody like me bought something this cool back in the day. And I think I'd remember somebody, I don't know, I'd heard, I think She Sells Sanctuary on radio or somewhere. I know I'd heard that song before. Maybe one of my friends, cooler friends, had this. But this is the Cult Love, the cassette. Own this on cassette. I think I bought it the same day that I bought The Cure's Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. But I knew like the Cult were cool, and so I picked this one up. Like I said, it's got She Sells Sanctuary on here, which was probably the only Cult song you can dance to. But it's also got a track, the opening track, Nirvana. It's very cool. The title track, Love, is awesome. Brother Wolf, Sister Moon. I love the Phoenix right into Hollow Man on side 2 is just awesome. But the Cult kick ass. And don't let anybody try to convince you otherwise, and they won't, because they know the Cult are where it's at, or at least they were where it was at in the late 80s and early 90s. So I want to talk a little bit about how did I get into punk music so heavily. Well, the album that started it off, and this was kind of like a gateway to anybody who's like, well, I'm not sure if I like the aggressive punk of The Damned or, Sex Pistols or Black Flag or Meatmen or the Misfits or anything like that. The Clash were kind of like, hey, we're not that aggressive. We're not that frightening. We're not that controversial, I guess maybe is the word. But Combat Rock was, you could say London Calling was kind of their commercial breakthrough, but this one definitely got them on the FM radio back in the day, because you had, even my dad had the single for Rock the Casbah and Should I Stay or Should I Go? If I'm not mistaken, that was like two sides of the same single, but my dad only played the Rock the Casbah. And so that was the first time I'd ever heard the Clash. And I thought, well, it didn't even occur to me that they were punk rock. I mean, they looked like punk rockers on the cover of this album, but we didn't have the album. We just had that single. So I remember thinking they were just kind of like a rock pop group or whatever. And then come to find out later, oh, they got a whole catalog. Like their early stuff was very much punk, and then they kind of got more into a commercial vein. But this is a great album. Know Your Rights is very much a punk, kind of Joe Strummer, railing against the man like he used to do. I think Car Jamming's a cool little riff there. But there's so much cool stuff on here. Overpowered by Funk is a funk track. What? The Clash, yeah, they were doing funk very convincingly too. Adam Tan is great. It was either Ghetto, and I know I got this wrong in a previous video, but I think, who is it? I can't remember. There's some beat poet on one of these tracks, I think it might be Inoculated City or Ghetto Defendant. It's one of those, but was it? I don't think it was Allen Ginsberg though. It was, I don't know who it was, but it was some cool dude rapping on one of these tracks. But yeah, I fell in love with it. I bought the cassette because I'd heard the Rock the Casbah and then realized the rest of this album was very cool too. But yeah, great one. My first foray into anything that was not like Boston or Foreigner or Fleetwood Mac or Journey, stuff that my dad listened to. I didn't realize there was like an entire underground world out there of music that was phenomenal. Because I thought the only stuff that's any good is on the radio. Me and my young, naive, musically unadventurous mind, I thought, well, if it's any good, it's got to be played on the radio. And then one of my uncles gave me a bag of cassettes, and there were 4 REM cassettes in it. And this was probably like 1986. And the 4 cassettes in question were by REM. And this was the first one that I put into my little Walkman and started playing it, and blew my mind. Like, what? These guys aren't on the radio. How can this stuff be so good? This doesn't sound like Foreigner. This doesn't sound like Journey. This doesn't sound like any of that stuff. Little River Band doesn't sound like anything like that. And it was good music. It reminded me a bit of the Beatles, some of their early stuff like Beatles for Sale, Rubber Soul-ish kind of stuff. And I couldn't understand what the hell Michael Stipe was singing, which was very cool because, like, I have no idea what he's mumbling about, but I love the jangly pop on here. I think that is totally cool. Michael Stipe, the fact that he didn't care whether you understood what he was saying or not. It was just about the whole presentation. But REM, I have, since that day when I popped this cassette into my Walkman, mind blown. I cannot, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, I cannot overstate how important this record was to my future taste as a music listener, because if I had not stumbled onto stuff like this or the Smiths, I probably would still be listening to, a lot of stuff like The Outfield, or, just kind of white bread, generic 80s, Huey Lewis and the News type music. Even Genesis. Okay, I'm willing to admit that Genesis was very middle of the road, and I still do like Genesis, but I'm saying this totally blew my world wide open, and still love it today. All right, back into kind of the mainstream. Did I go through? All right, I'm on number 5 now, thank God. But anyway, this was a band that a lot of my friends were in before I was, and it wasn't until their Diver Down album, this is not Diver Down, but Diver Down album, where I actually listened to a Van Halen album all the way through, and I thought, damn, this is so cool. Van Halen was the band everybody wanted to be growing up. I don't care whether you were black or white, Christian, Protestant, Buddhist, no matter where you came from, your background, who your parents were, what your parents listened to, how many people your grandma slept with before she got with your grandpa. everybody loved Van Halen. I am telling you. And if they say they didn't love Van Halen or Van Halen sucks, they are full of crap, because Van Halen rocked the early 80s. They were everywhere. They were so cool. Everybody wanted to be David Lee Roth. Everybody wanted to play like Eddie Van Halen. Everybody, even Michael Anthony. I mean, sort of, I guess you want to call it like the black sheep of the band, the least photogenic, the most slovenly. I don't care what I look like. I'm just the bass player kind of persona that Michael Anthony adopted, even though his background vocals are amazing. But yeah, when this came out, it was like, all right, now the secret's out of the box. Van Halen, kick ass. I love Panama Off Here. Jump was kind of the one that took everybody, I guess, who was a Van Halen fan prior by surprise. But the rest of us were kind of like, ooh, that is pretty cool. Hot for Teacher with that cool video all over MTV. But yeah, this cassette, awesome. And of course, it was the last one for a long time with David Lee Roth. And then very unfortunately, Sammy Hagar took over the vocal duties. But nonetheless, was there any band cooler than Van Halen when I was growing up? Not really. Def Leppard, maybe. But anyway, so those are my 5 albums. It's been a fun contest to enter. Robert, you're amazing. Hope everybody's doing well. Give Robert's on My Turntable a sub. Have some coffee. Hang out with Robert. And it'll totally turn your day around. I can tell you, Robert has made my day. He's made my day better, and I'm better for having known Robert. And check out his channel. All right, everybody, take care.